Thank you for those that are already on, and thank you for joining. This is our first webinar with Japan, and I think it's going to be one of a few other webinars that we will be having. And so thank you all for joining us today. Good morning to those in Japan. Good afternoon to those of us here in Washington. We're excited for this event. Want to start off before we really dive too deep. I want to introduce Shanda Burke, who is with the ATO in Tokyo, and I wanted to go ahead and give the floor over to her for a few to allow her to say a few things. So Shanda, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. And thanks to Avia Reps and the state of Washington for inviting us to participate today in this webinar. It's kind of a strange time, right? That we're having to connect virtually, but at the same time, we've found here in Tokyo, it's kind of opened up some new doors for us, and we're able to communicate more readily with people that we previously might not have been able to see here in person. So thank you all for making the time and for your interest in the Japan market. USDA has quite a large presence here in Japan. It's a significant, strategic, important market for us. So we have 3 different offices. Actually, we have 4. The Office of Agricultural Affairs here in Tokyo is headed by our Minister Counselor, a gentleman by the name of Morgan Perkins, who many of you may know. And so he and his team handle the overall bilateral relationship with the Japanese government, trade negotiations, market intelligence, and reporting on hard commodity issues. They can also assist with some certificate and questions about shipping and other government regulations for getting U.S. products here to market in Japan. Then we have 2 agricultural trade offices. My office here in Tokyo has a team of 5 local staff, and I have a deputy dedicated and committed to helping all of you get your products here to Japanese consumers. And then we also have an agricultural trade office in Osaka with a team of 3 local staff and 1 American officer. And then we're fortunate, actually, in Japan to also have an animal and plant health inspection service. And so those folks are based here in Tokyo and are engaging every day with our Japanese counterparts on sanitary and phytosanitary issues. We're also fortunate that there's an APHIS regional representative here. So sometimes we get kind of tip of the sword information about what's happening in other North Asia markets. And so it's good from a coordination perspective. So our team is here. We're always available. We are happy to provide market intelligence. Most of our gain reports are free and publicly available. We're also always willing to do one-on-one consultations via webinars or Microsoft Teams or just over the phone to talk about specific products and market opportunities that we see here in Japan. Then we also provide business-to-business marketing opportunities. So those are kind of targeted services in addition to our overall umbrella work. We obviously support U.S. pavilions at trade shows. We're staffing one right now. We're in the middle of the supermarket trade show. And then in 2 weeks, we have FoodX Japan. We support in-store promotions, social media promotions. We're working on some exciting new digital media and social media platform work. So I might just stop there. I'm happy to take questions. I'm also happy, please feel free to share my direct contact information with anyone who might be interested in reaching out to our offices directly. And I'll turn it back over to you, Zach, and if there's any questions, happy to take them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being with us. And I know you got limited time. So if you guys have, the way we'll be handling Q&A is please use the chat box for any questions that you might have, and then I will address them as in every section as we go. So if you guys do have any questions for Shanda, please put them in now. I also wanted to also say I've worked with the ATO in Tokyo, and they are excellent. They are very good at getting back information, and you know, we really appreciate that as the state, and working with you guys. It's been really pleasant and very helpful. So thank you so much for that. And make sure to tell your team that we really appreciate that as well, please.
Oh, thank you. I can do that.
Absolutely, thanks. So I'll go ahead and kind of start moving. Doesn't look like we've gotten any Q&A yet. So I'll go ahead and keep moving. So I didn't really introduce myself. My name is Zachary Garza. I do work for the Washington State Department of Agriculture. For those of you that haven't met me, for those of you that have met me and have worked with me, please feel free to get a hold of me if you guys need to get a hold of another country's ATO. I can definitely help with that as well. But we also have an in-market rep that can help with various things as well. And so I want to go ahead and move to that portion of this, and I will allow them to introduce themselves. And so I'll introduce Mark Welch first. And Mark, I'll let you take it away and let you guys introduce yourselves.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone over in Washington. Thank you very much for coming. Very happy that you can join us here today. And yeah, we're here to introduce you more about the Japan market. But first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm the account manager for the in-market account here in Japan, and I'll be your key contact if you have any inquiries, any like marketing promotional inquiries regarding the Japan market, or any these kind of questions. If you just want to shoot me in a mail, I know many of you have already been sending emails, and that's really, really good. And we'll try and get back to you as soon as we can with the information that you're looking for, or at least put you in touch with or recommend people who you are looking for in the market over here in terms of exporting and looking into it here. But for this webinar, we're hoping we can just give you an overview of Japan. I guess a lot of you may be new to the market here. So we just want to give you just an overview first of like the latest market information, trends, COVID updates, and then more into maybe the meat that you're looking for, like the trade, HRI sectors, how that's set up in Japan, and also touching on some Japanese etiquette, stuff like that. So basically, I've been working on the account with Keiko here, I'll introduce in a minute, since November. And yeah, we're looking forward to working more with you moving forward. Yeah. So over to Keiko.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to their first Japan webinar with their Zach and Chanda. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And we are very, the new to this state, but we will be very much looking forward to working with you. And if we have any questions, just let us know. I hope to meet you in person in Japan or the Washington State. Thank you very much. Okay, now I'm going to take a button to Eileen. Hi, Eileen, please.
Thank you, Keiko. Hello, everyone. My name is Eileen. As you know, Mark will be mainly your main contact person, but whenever he's unavailable, sometimes there might be cases that I might be the one who might be helping out. So yeah, I'm looking forward to working with you all, and we hope that you really like our presentation and feel a bit more passionate about Japan.
Yeah, and lastly, we have Ashley. He can't be with us today, but he's the general manager of our office here in Japan. So he oversees all the clients that we have in the office, and I'm sure some of you have already touched base with him. But yeah, he might be a point of contact as well for you guys. Thank you. Okay. Okay. So just to briefly recap the points we want to touch on today for the next hour or so. We're first gonna just give you the market information, the latest from Japan, what's happening here. And as you know, globally, the COVID-19 situation is affecting all countries. We're just going to give you a brief update into Japan, just something that's more relevant to you. And also moving on to the consumer trends that are currently happening in the market here, as well as the Japan trade structure. It's quite unique compared to the US or Europe. So we're just going to give you a brief overview of how things work here. And then finally, we're going to give you a bit of a taste of a Japanese business, like etiquette and culture, because that's also quite unique to Japan when you're dealing with Japanese clients or potential clients, customers. There are some subtle differences maybe between the US and Europe. So we'll just give you some heads up on that. So any questions you do have, yeah, just put them in the chat box as Zach said before. Okay. Okay, Japan market overview. So this is what Fuji looks like in the spring. It changes seasonally. Okay, first, just basic key facts about the country itself. In terms of size, it's slightly smaller than California, just to give you an idea. And it ranked about 62nd in terms of size in the world. Of course, you know, capital is Tokyo, but there's other major centers around Tokyo, like Yokohama is also a part of the metropolitan area of Tokyo, as well as the Kansai region, which has Osaka, Nagoya, out to the west as well. And then more secondary to tertiary hubs, Sapporo in the north, in Hokkaido, in this part here, and Fukuoka down in Kyushu as well. In terms of economy, it's currently around the third in the world, behind US and China, the GDP of around 5 trillion. And as of January, the growth rate was up 5.3. It's come down a bit to 3 slightly, but it's still positive at the moment. And GDP capita around 49,000 per head. Okay. Okay, to give you some demographics. If you look at the chart in the bottom left here, you can see it's somewhat similar. There's got the US and Japan here. The US is in light green, Japan in dark green. So up until like 54, the trend is similar, somewhat into US. But then you can see there's a slightly higher, the senior population is slightly higher, up to about 29% for those over 65. But the median age is around 48 years old. And then, as I mentioned before, are the key metropolitan areas. So yeah, of course, Tokyo and Nagoya. That's famous for like Toyota's got a big factory there, so automobile. The industry there is big. And then over in the Osaka Kobe, electronics is a key market over there. Okay. And then just to give you a short introduction to like how the holidays work here. So people here, there's a maximum of 20 paid vacation holidays, but culturally, not all Japanese people necessarily take those, as maybe they might do in the US or in Europe or South America. But it is offered to them. And then private travel periods, big holidays coming up actually, end of April, early May, called Golden Week. And then in the summer, there's an Obon, which is a kind of festival to celebrate like people's deceased relative, it's a spiritual kind of thing, and there's a short holiday there, but that's like given. Most companies take that on. And then also early September there's a Silver Week, and then just as in US there's there's a end of year holiday. Christmas is actually not a national holiday here, but the end of year between 28th to the January is essentially a holiday, and most companies will be closed around this time. So yeah, just bear in mind, maybe when you're contacting clients, sometimes these periods like Golden Week, Obon, Silver Week, then the holidays, they might be slow to reply, or they might be, just to give you a heads up on that when you're contacting people in Japan. Okay. Okay, the Japan import overview. So in all imports, regardless of what the industry is, as 2018, the imports around 653 billion yen, and it's making the 5 trade destination in the world behind US, China, Germany, and the UK. And the leading imports, crude oil, coal, briquettes, gas, etc. So. And then as you can see, this top 10 trading market partners, as you can see, US is 2, so it's a very key market for Japan. And then other competitor markets would be China, South Korea, Taiwan, Australia, which are in the top 5. But yeah, US is in a very good position, very good relationship with Japan. And then as you might look here, this is the 2019 data. So this is coming from the Japanese custom. They release their statistics, so there would be a 2020 coming out soon. So this is just the latest data at the moment. And likewise, specific for imports into the market here, again, US at $82 billion, 11%, still very strong position behind China. So it's a similar as the countries we just saw overall for both import and export. The US is still, very strong for imports. Okay, and then just an overview of some growth food products in Japan that has it be increasing by volume. So like a beef and other beef product, pork, processed vegetable, wheat, etc. So these are quite similar for Washington State. These resound a lot, I guess, with you guys. So you're dealing with these kind of products, so it's quite a key. And what you're dealing with to Japan is these are growing food areas for Japan. And then looking over specifically towards the US and Japan relations in terms of imports. So as of 2020, some of the biggest imports have been sausage products, ham and bacon, and then soybean, whey, corn, wheat, sorghum and buckwheat. These are all some of the items, as in addition to these here, so many fruits from oranges and raisins, etc., to grapes. Cherries is big. So obviously, again, these are strong products that you guys are supplying also in Washington too, and nuts and other vegetables as well. And again, other products such as oil and frozen potato products, also big in Washington. Vegetable juice, sweet corn, tomato puree, and then this area you can touch base way more with Chanda and Zach on these issues, but just to let you know, the tariff elimination, stage tariffs, and tariff reduction. Certain products have these for the Japan market been enforced from 2020 through US-Japan trade agreement. So if you want to reach out, if you have any more specific technical questions on these, then I'm sure that Chanda and Zach will be happy to answer these questions on these for you. Okay, and then specific, let's move on to Washington State. So I'm sure a lot of you will be aware of these stats already, but as of 2019, these are the top 10 products available, exporting to Japan, and many of these being ranking as a top market here. So yeah, from hay, French fries, fish and seafood, through wheat, beef, dairy, frozen vegetable, canola seed, fruit and vegetable juice, and pasta and couscous. So what we are planning to do moving forward is to gather more information on these specific topics as topics, like take each product and then conduct some specific research on this, and then pass over to you. If you're in the hay industry, then we'll pass it to you guys. If you're dealing with potatoes, French fries, we'll pass it to you, and fish and seafood, etc. Just so we can develop a bigger, broader base for you guys. So and develop more stronger marketing resources to help you support your marketing and promotional potential for the Japan market moving forward. Okay, and then just moving on to some consumer trends. Lately, the culinary trends, particularly e-commerce and organic, are quite key in the market at the moment. So specifically for the e-commerce sector, online delivery, food delivery is projected to reach around 3 billion in 2020, and on annual growth of 6.5 for the market, and also way up to around 4 billion by 2024. So that's really, especially with the corona, which I'll touch on in a minute, this is obviously a key area that's growing, and that for this time, it's quite an important area to look at moving forward as well. And then the organic sector as well is also very big, with artisanal brands with a value share of about 25% in 2019, so that's quite big. And then the value share of 4.9 from Takanashi Dairy, and value share of 2.2. So there's some particular market organic related companies in Japan. And in terms of global size, it's ranked 13th at $591 million as of 2019. And still growing. Expected 1.2% forecast moving forward. But yeah, these, in terms of consumer trend, these are growing market areas to consider. Okay, other more specific themes in the culinary area, veganism. So like traditionally in Japan, it's very hard for vegetarians and vegans to kind of survive in Japan, as it were, because it's kind of taken for granted that a lot of Japanese people will eat meat, fish, and it's not really an issue. But recently, veganism has become a source. There's been more food and surface outlets bringing up the cater the vegan, has vegan choices on the menu, because that's also kind of been a hard thing up until now, but that's slowly changing. And that more vegan, like the concept, I think, for a start, it's beginning to kind of sink into the Japanese society now. Bring your own bottle has been common, where obviously you bring alcohol or wine to a restaurant and eat there. That's getting bigger. As is craft beer and spirits. Just as I came on the train, there was an advert for craft gin for a Japanese company. So, it's slowly coming up everywhere that it's also more conscious trend, which is coming up. As is modern izakaya. No, izakaya is like a Japanese pub, and it's where people go for drinks, especially have been at the moment. There's a bit of a restriction I'll mention in a minute. But it's a traditional place where, after work, you meet your colleagues and you have a good time, you go for a drink, have some food. But the more kind of modern, more trendy style izakayas are also springing up more. Because basically very traditional type have been in existence up till now. But especially in the urban areas like Tokyo, Osaka, some of the big cities, these kind of more modern style are coming up. Another one, for example, the hummuses, like from Middle Eastern kind of cuisine, and for social media, like photogenic foods, food videos, very big, like on Instagram and Facebook, etc. They're also trending. Okay, underlying market drivers. So like ethical living, a relatively new concept for Japanese people, and public. This is also increasing in public awareness, and it's just making Japanese people think about like where things come from, the sources of things is becoming, and how like animal treatment, things like that, becoming more increasing. Middle class retreat, so selecting value for money, having a strong interest in unique products, like things with a strong USP. I think people are getting very more interested in very individual rather than mass marketed products that that have a key, like an interesting background, interesting branding, interesting philosophy. This is getting bigger, as is a loner kind of lifestyle. People who are on the solo, active consumption through rising number of single households, and products tailored to single people. And there's many people who live on their own from working and stuff like that. So that's also these three drivers to keep in mind. Okay, so I've been just giving you a bit of a taste of the overview of Japan so far. So if you have any questions, then I'm happy to. Okay.
No questions.
No questions for now. Okay. Yeah, if you have any, just drop them in the box. Okay. Okay, so I'll just give you a couple of brief updates on the COVID situation here. So actually, in terms of ranking, it's about 37 in terms of cases. As of February, 417,000 confirmed. And of that, only 23,000 are active. So that's only 5% of all the confirmed cases to date. And there's been 7.6 million PCR tests happening. And of those, around more than 90% have been negative. So it just, just to put it into perspective of what that's like in Japan. So it's actually, it's here in Japan, but it's not as severe as maybe some other countries are. So still bear that in mind. And also, just to give you a heads up on this current situation here, we're actually in a state, some of the key urban areas like Tokyo, some surrounding prefectures, and Osaka have been in the state of emergency since January, and it's been so it's from February, and it's been extended to March 7th. as of now. But when you might hear state of emergency, it sounds, I think, more dramatic than it is. I mean, it's not an official lockdown. And the only restrictions that we're having at the moment is that like bars, restaurants are closed by 8 p.m. Many public establishments closed by 8 p.m. And then the alcohol is not being served beyond 7 p.m. So they are kind of some of the biggest, kind of restrictive and maybe affect, you might be thinking, if you're considering like the HRI sectors and restaurants, that's something to bear in mind at the moment in Japan, that those sectors are have some effect in that, they have limited hours. And then in other areas that in April, Japan established a series of programs funded at 5.2 billion supplement to the food, agriculture, forestry, and fishery sectors affected by the economic turndown, which is good for the domestic market here. So the sales promotion, domestic products, horticulture production, storage costs for logs, fisheries, and products, and a Go to Eat campaign. And there was also another campaign called Go to Travel, which was currently been suspended, but that had also been taking off very well to kind of stimulate domestic travel within Japan. So hopefully that will come back shortly as well. And in other kind of trends triggered by by Corona, has been a sharp rise in the meat products, over 1 million metric tons imported in response to increasing cooking at home. So that's also another key trend, like stay at home and cooking, which I think is popular. It's common in other markets as well. And then, so some other key factors, the vaccines, actually, they've just kicked off the other day. They've started vaccinating people in the medical field, key people there with the Pfizer vaccine here. And then that set out kind of the rollout plan moving forward is also to vaccinate the senior people and then general public by around April. So things are moving slowly for Japan, but I mean, they're finally happening now, which is good forecast for Japan. So we're hopeful moving forward on that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And some other trends in Japan. Quality time at home. So people are obviously spending more time at home, and which is also stimulated in things like board games and other like sales, which have jumped a lot. So people are spending a lot more product on things that they are, where they can stay at home and do. And then other things including kitchen appliances, hot plates, table fryers, and takoyaki grillers. Now, takoyaki is a kind of like octopus fried ball with like batter in it, and that's kind of, it's a typical Japanese thing, and it's like what people do at home and cook together around the table. And then other example include home friendly hobbies. So great outdoor lovers. Obviously, with now people are more keen on going to the nature places outside of the city, places, and people are making use of their balconies, verandas, spending time outside, just to get that kind of change of scene. And for example, hammocks and garden parasols purchase have increased, as well as dumbbells and foam rollers for Japan. So this is just some ideas to give you that people also in Japan are also keen to develop more hobbies that they can do at home. Okay. Okay, any questions for the Corona section? If you don't, I'll move on to. Okay.
Hey, Mark, I do have a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
On Corona, have you guys started doing any kind of injections for the virus?
Yeah, so mentioned in this one here, so the vaccine has been commenced just 2 days ago, actually. The Pfizer vaccine, yeah. So this is the people in medical field, like doctors, nurses, etc. They're the first on the list, and are being started now. So that's great news. That's very new news for us, you know, and we're happy to hear that got the ball started rolling here, as it were. But yeah, so they're going to be the first to be vaccinated, and then like people who have emergency needs, and people who are senior, over 60s, etc. And then public vaccination should be around April at this stage, but that might change. But it's good that it started commencing, yeah, vaccination.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, let's talk about the trade, retail, and HRI sectors. I'll just give you a brief overview of what that looks like. So in terms of importing for the retail sector, let's start with that. The traditional entry points are by importers to make way for more adverse avenues. For example, even with one food retail organization, there may be several routes. So you could go directly with like a large scale supermarket, convenience store, but also through importers and wholesalers as well. So yeah, importers, and those are still important to Japan. And then working more closely on the large scale supermarkets, they still rely on the importers and wholesalers. And most are engaged to some degree in developing and maintaining private labels, which they tend to outsource to food processors. And then for conventional supermarkets, tend to be on more the wholesalers, and usually produce from more regional, local, and national wholesalers who buy imported food from trading houses and importers. And then wholesalers and big trading houses are generally interested in handling high value products and not niche marketed orientated products. And then this is just a chart to kind of give you the picture, like in an image form. Maybe it's easy to understand how it works. So exporter, this would be you guys over in Washington, and then you can either come here, like a large, very few items imported directly, but it can happen through a large scale supermarket here. But the main thing here is the Japanese importers, so they're quite a key area for the Japanese trading. So like a large trading company, domestic food manufacturer, or specialty importer. And then also large-scale convenience stores, but that's similar to the supermarket. It's maybe a bit fewer. So yeah, your key link here is first is the importer, and then the next in the chain is a food manufacturer or the primary wholesaler or regional department, and then these people will reach out. They will provide with the products for the large-scale supermarkets and large-scale convenience stores. And then these are for buying containers. And then if you're selling by pallets, it'll more obviously getting smaller in size to the regional distributor and vendors. And then from the large scale supermarkets and large scale convenience stores, this will go down into the traditional stores and the smaller supermarket and convenience stores as well. Okay, that's just a kind of general overview of what the kind of importing for the retail sector looks like in the Japan market. Okay, and then just some general statistics on this. So there's several major sections have the following retail food distribution channel, and they are the general merchandise store, the GMS, supermarkets, 19.6%. Department stores, they have an area called like a depachika, which often consists of a food hall, as a 4.3%. Convenience stores, a CVS, 13.8%. And the more specialty shops, like a mom and pop style shop, is the majority at around 62%. So that's the kind of makeup of the retail. Okay, and then I'll hand it over to Keiko to explain about the next one.
Okay, so let's talk about the supermarket. So first of all, Aeon and 7&I Holdings are very influential and powerful retailers in the Japanese market. But these retailers' revenue is still mainly driven by in-store purchasing. However, in the COVID-19 situation, Japanese consumers tend to have more access to e-commerce and delivery service platforms, and they are gaining trend. The most popular e-commerce and delivery sites are Amazon, Rakuten, and cooperative stores.
Okay, thanks, Keiko. Okay, let's look at the wholesalers. So here are some of the main characteristics of Japanese wholesalers and their practices. So the first point is they give priority to customer service. They're very big on that. They're able to deliver the smallest quantity to retailers on request. They accept unsold goods without complaint, bear substantial selling risk, grant special discount to long-term clients and offer them credit for 4 to 5 months. Small retailers depend heavily on them and supported in activities like bookkeeping and customer service. 6th point is that the wholesalers in Japan have more influence than in other countries compared to other markets. And they also participate in a complicated and non-transparent system of rebates and have formed complicated independent multi-layered systems. So that's just like something to bear in mind, that there is some issue with that. But generally a very good overview on actual trends. They're good at seeing what the trend is looks like in the market. They're good to keep a tab on that. And they obtain good feedback from retailers, provides distribution channel to retailers all over the country. And then quite a few wholesalers are importing directly from overseas, bypassing non-traditional, not using trading companies. So that's just a basic overview on the wholesalers. And then I pass it over to Keiko to give some more specific companies.
Okay. Actually, there are several wholesalers groups. For example, the Kokubu. The Kokubu is a huge wholesaler as well as an importer. And Mitsubishi Shokuhin, Mitsui Food, and Itochu Shokuhin, they are subsidiary of huge trading companies, which are Mitsubishi Corporation, Mitsui and Company, and Itochu Corporation. Some distributors mainly deal with the retailers and some for the food service industry. So we believe the wholesaler is very important, as they sometimes act as an importer as well. But if you are looking for the Japanese market, we recommend you to find the importers first, then maybe the wholesalers. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Okay, and now let's talk about convenience stores. They are the most difficult retail channels to get in, as their handling and selected items are very limited. There are also different categories of convenience stores. 7-Eleven, with some 21,000 outlets, is under the 7&I Holdings. Lawson, with approximately 10,000 outlets, is a subsidiary of Mitsubishi Corporation. Family Mart, with approximately 16,600 outlets, is under Itochu Corporation. And Ministop, with 2,000 outlets, is in the Aeon groups. So those the top 4 convenience stores in Japan. But the 7-Eleven, Family Mart, Lawson, maybe we can say like big 3 convenience stores. Thank you. And specialty stores. Actually, these specialty stores prefer value-added products, including, as Mark mentioned, organic ingredients and products. Recently, some stores such as Seijo Ishii and National Azabu, they are acting as importers as well, to focus on their selection and their specialty.
Okay, now we'll move on to the HRI sector and see how the importing works for these companies, for HRI focused ones. So most imported food products still pass through the trading company. So for the large trading companies, including like Mitsubishi, Marubeni Itochu, Mitsui, and Sumitomo. And they have many divisions within the company specializing in a variety of import foods. So it's similar to what we looked at for the retail, in that still the Japanese importer is a key in the chain. And then they pass on their products onto the food manufacturers, primary wholesalers, and regional departments. So that when you have the food service operator here and cash and carry grocery stores chain, this is still more the lower end. Like in terms of volume, it's not as high as going through the importer still. And then from the food manufacturer, wholesaler, and the regional departments, we're moving on to secondary distributors and vendors, and then eventually onto the large-scale operators, hotels, and smaller individual operators. So this is a kind of the chain, how it looks like if you're importing towards the HRI. And then just to give you some stats for HRI breakdown, of course, of the hotel, restaurant, and institution sectors, the majority is a restaurant. In terms of revenue, 133 billion US dollars in 2019. And then HMR, 66%, drinking establishment 45, institutional 30, hotels 26, and transportation 2.5. So yeah, you can see restaurant is a kind of the key here. Okay, I'll give it to Keiko too. Okay. Next one.
Okay, the Japanese whole food service industry has been facing the difficulty due to the COVID-19 situation. However, they try to survive, focusing on delivery and takeout services. Basically, the top 10 restaurants shown on the slide are the casual family type restaurant. So, for example, Plenas operates lunchbox businesses. Dotto is a coffee house chain. Zensho operates fast food chains, including Sukiya, which offering beef balls. And Colorado is a huge food service group, including Japanese to Italian restaurants. And lastly, both Sushiro and Kura are the reasonable priced sushi restaurants. Okay. And also the Japanese hotel groups. Marriott International is only foreign capital hotel chains, but they tie up with the Japanese companies to operate their brand hotels. Japanese hotels also, Japanese hotel industry is also facing difficulty to run businesses due to COVID-19. And as Mark said, Japanese government tried to support the hospitality industry to conduct Go to Travel and Go to Eat campaign. However, it's been stopped at the state of emergency and had declared again in the beginning of January. But we are looking forward to the government to do the similar activity in later, maybe the spring. That's our hope.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, now let's just give you some more trends from the food service sale between 2019 and 2020. You can see from last year, before Corona happened, it was quite constant, very high, and then there was a bit of a dip beginning of last year, but then that's gone back up again. So this graph is taking into account the fast food, family style restaurant, pub diner, dinner, coffee, and tea houses, and others. So yeah, it's at the moment, yeah, there's a kind of, for now, as we mentioned, that there's a bit of restriction still because it's coming into January. But once this comes, we are confident it's going to be changing again for the better. So yeah, we'll keep you posted on what's happening in the market on that. Okay, over to the trade shows.
Okay. Key trade shows. The Foodex is the largest food-oriented trade show in Japan, and it is strictly B2B. ATO Tokyo has been participating in the show and always welcomes participation. The organizer has decided to conduct the show physically this year, starting from March 9th to 12th in Makuhari, Chiba. I think basically this show is suitable for the company who looks for an importer here in Japan. And there are another food-related trade shows in Japan, such as supermarket trade show, which is now taking place, as Chanda mentioned. And we recommend Fabex, which is mainly targeted for the daily product, lunchbox, food service, and school lunch businesses. Fabex usually takes place in Tokyo in spring and Osaka in autumn. ATO Osaka has a booth last year to share the cost with the exhibitors, and then according to the ATO Osaka, although the COVID-19 was in a risk, but there are a lot of people visiting there, and they said it was a good show. Yeah. So this year, the Fabex Tokyo will be conducted in April. So far. Okay, thank you.
Okay, finally for this sector, just want to look at some advantages for exporting to Japan. So as you mentioned before, the US trade agreement, nearly 90% of the US agricultural products are either duty-free or have preferential tariff access. So that's very, very good. US food cost is the competitiveness, the wide variety of US food products available, and the reliable supply of US food products. Again, the advancement in US food processing technology is attractive to Japanese buyers. Relative low shipping costs, science-based US fact safety procedures, a growing Japanese emulation of US trends, Japanese food processing industry seeking new ingredients, and changes in the Japanese distribution system, similar to that of the US. And finally, Japan's dependence on foreign food supply. It's very heavily dependent on foreign imports for their food supply. So yeah, it's a very good reason to export here. But just to be aware of a couple of challenges that you might encounter. The competition existing in other exporting countries, as I mentioned in the previous slides, there is some competition there with limited numbers of products. Increasing safety concerns on the food product among Japanese consumers. They're very particular on the quality and these kind of things, so that's good to keep in mind. The distance from Japan, if you have very, very fresh, that might spoil, some ways to keep in mind how to keep that, to keep your products at its best quality when it even reaches Japan. Perceived consumer antipathy for biotech genome edited food and additives, they can be a bit of an issue in Japan. Yeah, as I mentioned, the high quality, not only the quality, but the appearance is very, very important to Japan. When you go to a Japanese supermarket, you'll see, the produce section looks really, really, really good. And they're always picking their products very carefully, what they display in their stores. The high cost of marketing here, import duties, and yeah, competition. But these are things to keep in mind, but yeah, not totally. Again, so I think definitely the positives here are definitely the strengths here. Okay. Okay, question. I think we have a question here. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The question is, what USA brands do you see in the mini marts and convenience stores? And the question, she kind of elaborates, is based on her experience. Is nearly impossible to compete in this channel due to convoluted distribution system, adding impossible layers of cost to shelf in this channel. So what kind of USA brands do you guys see in those kind of stores?
Yeah, you can.
Actually, not so many US brands, but they're producing private brands, private labels, using the US ingredients. So I think that's the way of the convenience stores. We can see a few products, maybe like well, but mostly domestic products. But as I told you, that the ingredients are the US or the other country products. That's the main way of the convenience stores.
Okay. And the next question is from Bauman. Who are the largest pizza chains?
Okay, pizza chains. There are a few pizza chains here in Japan. One is the Pizzala, and Pizza Hut, and also the U.S. origin Shakey's. Yes, maybe they're the yeah, and Domino's. Yes, Domino's, and those four are the quite big pizza chains in Japan.
Okay, yeah, thank you guys for your questions. If you have any more on this section, I think we're going to move into the next section. So if you have any other question, we'll take them in the next round. Okay. Okay, just lastly, the last section I want to touch on is quite an interesting one, is the business etiquette and the culture that exists here when you're dealing with clients in particular. So there's quite one thing you might have experienced is like a indirectness when being dealing with Japanese people. They might not be as direct as Americans and some Europeans or South Americans in their approach. They might not give a yes or no answer. It's somewhere in the middle. So yeah, you have to be when you're talking with them, maybe make sure you're on the same page, or you know what they are, kind of get their where they're going, and give them some time to decide, or moving forward on that. And in terms of the culture as a whole, Japan is quite group orientated, and especially in a business setup, it's still changing in somewhat, but it's still quite in the traditional Japanese companies. It's still like a vertical in terms more of a horizontal style, where you might have in the US, where you're maybe quite on open terms with your boss or your manager. Japan's still very much like your boss and the people at the very senior position of the company are the decision makers. So you know, the people who are at the lower level might not have as much priority, even if they're very enthusiastic about your product and they love it. They might say, "Oh, wait, let me get back to my boss and check," because sometimes, you know, that might take a bit longer than it does in the US on that. So yeah, just bear that in mind. And also the connections are very important to Japan. So like cold calling is not that big, or not that very well highly regarded here for approaching businesses. But if you have a connection somewhere through someone and you recommend, then they're much likely more to trust you and then take you on board. If you just get a contact out the blue from no one, then it's just from nothing. Tend to be a bit more skeptical. So that's something to bear in mind as well. And also, we encourage you to do your research into Japanese companies. Like if you got a brand, say it's hay, or if it's a distilled product, or if it's fresh produce, etc. Have a look at some research and see the companies. Look at your target, and then who you want to kind of reach out to, and see if you can find some companies you're interested in first. And then yes, we can assist you if there's maybe some language issue, but like we also encourage, maybe you can use like Google Translate or something if there's no English at all. But a lot of the bigger companies having English pages nowadays on their website, so you just take a look around and see if you can establish some contact that you want to get in touch with as well. That would be really helpful. And then just an example of some feedback you might get from a Japanese company. You might get something like, "Yeah, we're really glad to hear about your product and be in touch, and you know, we're considering it," something like that. But that, you know, that could also mean kind of a 50-50. So yeah, definitely make sure when you're speaking with the Japanese that they are really interested. And yeah, so just okay. And then some example of a Japanese phrase you might have. This is maybe just, especially when you meet in person with people or virtually. I'm sure you know some of these, like for good morning, ohayo gozaimasu, or konnichiwa for hello. Nice to meet you, hajimemashite. And then this is in the business setting when you introduce yourself. When you introduce yourself, you'd say watashi wa, then your name, and then tomoshimasu. So that's like the very formal way, like a business way to say. And then some particular words that are very common just for Japanese culture. They didn't have any particular meaning in English as such, but Yoroshiku Onegaishimasu, it's like when you want to ask a favor of someone or mutually you want to go ahead with something, you'd say it then. There's so many situations you can use this phrase, and we use it all the time in many different areas. And if you're writing a business letter, in Japanese, they always start with the person's name plus sama. So it would be like Zakari-sama and writing an email. And then they'll say like osewa ni natte orimasu, which basically literally translates of, you know, I thank you for taking care of me, something like that. Or it's kind of just a very common business phrase you put. You don't have to put this in English, of course, but it's just a cultural, you know, heads up for you guys. And then some words that may be of interest: Washington State's Washington Shu, agriculture is Nogyo, and trade boeki, export yushitsu, and import yuni. Just some words that may be key for you guys. And then finally, business card culture is quite big in Japan, like exchanging business cards. It's not just simply, you know, you get your card and then you give it, and then it's quite casual, I think, in the US and Europe. It's not really a big thing. It's just, you know, just not really. But in Japan, it's quite a key thing. So I just wanted to show you an example of how to do the card. Okay. Let's come back. Okay. So, for example, the card itself, I'll just show you mine here. So it's got English on one side, and then on the other, it's in Japanese. So this is very common. Bilingual cards here are quite standard. And then when you introduce yourself, you usually take your card in both hands. And then if you started speaking, if you have a Japanese on your card, which would be great, you turn it to the Japanese side, hold it with two hands. And then when you see the person, so if I'm meeting Keiko for the first time, you hold it up like this, and then I'd say, Hajimemashite, watashi, Aviareps Japan, Mark to moshimasu. Like that. So it's quite, you know, take care of your posture, and like make sure the card's facing the right way and that you speak clearly. Well, like it's kind of like a ritual almost. Like when you meet someone for the first time in Japan, that's definitely the first thing you're going to take out your card, and then yeah. So that's something just to bear in mind. Okay. I see we've got quite a few questions come up. This is great.
Yeah. So what was the last section, Mark? In Japan, are alcoholic beverages, particularly spirits, handled by food importers and wholesalers, or are there specific importers and wholesalers who handle alcohol?
Okay, I'll just keep.
For the distilled products and like wines and those alcohol products are usually handled by specialty importers and the specialty the distributors. But you know, like Kokubu, which is a huge distributor and importer, and they are handling the every items. But most of their alcohol importers are quite small scale with the professional knowledge. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then the next question I see here is, what do you think it's going to take for Japan to have an organic awakening? And then she goes on to explain a little bit more. But what is it? Is Japan starting to shift to a more organic, or is it still kind of a little bit behind what the U.S. is?
Honestly speaking, Japan is still a lot behind of the US, but these days organic items are getting popular, and then that I can see a lot of opportunities for the organic products and also the ingredients. But yeah, still the relatively small percentages compared to the general food products and ingredients. Thank you.
And next question here is, they're interested in hearing what you have heard about the Olympics and if it looks like they will be happening this summer.
Still, yeah, it's like an ongoing thing at the moment. It's still like we've got kind of two parties. Some committees really positive to keep going, and then other people's opinion is like, no, it's like I think a lot of the public opinion is quite against holding it. Yeah. But ultimately it will be up to the committee, I think, who's going to decide it. But it's still not, like I said, in stone. Yeah. You have any other comments?
Well, this morning, I have just watched the TV and one of the kinjiji. How do you say that? Kinjiji, like
the prefectural governor.
Yeah, the prefecture governor was officially against the Olympics. So I think it was the first time to see the official, against the Olympics. It was not just like a rumor, just his the real opinion. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, we're still also, we just keep following the news and what like any press conferences that the government are doing, and we'll let you know what's happening on that, because it's quite key. I'm sure everyone wants to know what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So I think if anyone has any more questions, we're happy to answer for the last couple of minutes, and then
if someone's typing. I want to take this a quick moment while there. It seems like someone's going. If someone's interested, Mark, in setting up a meeting with you, can they reach out to you and set that up if it's one of our Washington companies?
Yeah, we're happy to set up like a consultation and see how we can help, like specifically. And we'll send some kind of like a form, like some kind of to give an outline, and if you can give kind of the suppliers, you guys can give your kind of input. We'll set like a specific like a form that you can fill in first, and then we can see where you're at and then how we can help you, and then that might be more effective.
Yeah, that's great. And then Julie's asking, for virtual meetings, are there any helpful hints on how to hold those meetings when meeting with the buyer? I'm assuming when she's talking about when meeting with the buyer.
Okay. I see. When you're meeting with buyers, a virtual meeting. So, do you have any experience? Do you have any? I think it's possible to do at the moment. Just as like we're doing now, like just holding a regular like event like you would do like on Zoom or any other platform. Nothing. It's just like a regular, like as if you're meeting in person. It's just I guess just as if you're meeting them in person, nothing really changes. I guess it's the same way. I think if you have like I know some people have the business card, like a digital, that could be something good you could pass to them if you're interested. But it's just having the conversation, I think, in person in virtually too. I think it would be good for them to see you like face to face, virtually, as it were. Yeah, that would be very good. You can do that.
Excellent. And for the next question, I think I can answer. Yes, Terry. This presentation will be available within the next few days, so we can send that out. If you want, just shoot me an email, and we can get that out to you. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and then just if you guys, I've got my our contact information here. So if you guys ever have any inquiries, you want to get in touch for a consultation or just for some inquiry on the Japan market at all, my email's there. And our office address here is there in Tokyo address, and the office phone number too. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I think
and if there's no more questions, then yeah.
That's pretty much it. Yes,
Yeah.
domo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Really appreciate you guys being on with us. Again, we will be having some other, as WSDA, we'll be having some other webinars coming up soon. So stay tuned for those. And if you have any questions with regards to the Japan market, feel free to reach out to myself, and we'll make sure you get connected with the VIA reps, and we can get those questions as answered as best as possible. Also, I'll also work with the ATO in behalf of getting some of those questions answered. So feel free to reach out to me. We'll get those questions answered, and hopefully get your guys' product to Japan sooner than later.
Yeah.
Any last words, Mark?
Yeah. Again, just thank you, and just say finally, great to see you guys virtually, and yeah, we're looking forward to helping you guys. So any question, any thing you need to know, yeah, we're here for you guys. So yeah, just let us know.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think with that, we'll go ahead and end the meeting. Thank you guys all so much.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon and good evening too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.